regardless of your current perspective on the chaos swirling in the Middle East, we should all agree on three basic things. Number one, it is not okay to bring innocent people into your political nonsense and subject them to violence and political activism when they have nothing to do with any of it. Number two, it is not okay to disrupt traditions like Christmas in order to further your political project. And number three, it is not okay, and this is the more fundamental point that no one will really talk about, to reduce everything in society to politics and not see the variety and the color of differences that we have in our life and to assume that everything is politics. Because like someone who has a hammer, everything will look like a nail. And right now, Christmas to the pro-Palestinian radicals currently looks like a nail, and they are trying to whack it as hard as they can. There have been two incidences in America so far, perhaps even more, but two major ones I'll talk about that have to relate to Christmas, where pro-Palestinian demonstrators have gone into these Christmas lighting events, one in Seattle, one in New York City, and they have disrupted them by hoisting up Nazi insignia, by attacking, kicking, punching, screaming at people, by trying to swarm the Christmas trees, by taking over the stage that is supposed to announce the Christmas tree lighting. Here is some footage from both incidences. So we have to really understand where this comes from, because a lot of people will assume that this has to do just with the left and one side of the political aisle having a certain mentality towards a certain conflict. And while that is true in part, there is a deeper, more fundamental issue going on in our society, which I think these protests, these disruptions, really they're not protests in any meaningful sense of the word, because a protest, by definition, is an intelligible plea for a particular cause. These pleas are not intelligible. They are barbaric. They are born of passion. They are born of emotion. They are born of primitive sentiment towards your fellow man. Kicking, screaming, disrupting, destroying, interrupting the very principles that allow a voluntary society to exist are not civilized. It is the exact opposite of civilized. And a lot of these people that are calling for intifada are not civilized. They are simply barbarians wearing the clothes of civilization. So there's deeper going on here, is that there has been this mentality that has indeed been dominant on the political left for decades, but has also been embraced by some other people that are not on the left, who I think may have just been swept up under the furor. And it's this principle of the personal being political. This was really an idea that came into fruition, in popular fruition, under second wave feminism in the 60s, which basically told women, hey, the family is not private life, because people think that if you're not doing something with the government, you must be in private life. The family is not private life, even though it's separate from the government, because allegedly the man who's at the head of the family, the patriarchy, dominates you. So even in your personal life, you are subject to political control. So you should see all of society as this massive political game, and you should try to, in light of that perspective, get a leg up and level up in that game. This is the mentality. The personal is the political, instilled in so many generations of women, and this is the mentality that is on display in modern day American political thinking. Now, this idea does not have a very long history in our nation, because this idea was rejected at the outset of the American founding. The American founders endorsed the political concept of the private-public dichotomy. What does that mean? Well, it's this idea that there are two spheres of society. There is one sphere where man exists with his family, with his economic relations, with his social relations, and with his property, and he exists there. Then there is the public sphere, Well, the public sphere is a sphere of government, of politics, where that very narrow sphere where the processes of running a country's government are supposed to take place. And the founders understood, and the philosophies that inform the American founding understood, that when you have a separation between these two entities, you can do a few things. Number one, you can set power and the use of political power in its proper barriers. Number two, you can encourage in the citizenry a proper understanding of how political order is supposed to actually exist. And most importantly, number three, you can also encourage a healthy separation between a people and their government, so much so that the government does not have the ability to overtake the people or direct their lives. The private-public dichotomy is essential to have a healthy understanding of our interaction, our proper interaction with the government. But what has happened through years of postmodern gunk, through years of leftist philosophy in academia, through years of social activism becoming more important than actually being a social and civilized person in voluntary context, years of the deterioration of the private part of the public-private economy has resulted in political activists who now feel convicted, who now feel righteous in viewing everything as political, viewing everything as a matter that relates to their personal ideology, and attempting to conform everything to their personal ideology through brute force and barbarism. When you separate politics from the private life, politics can be properly used as a tool to handle things that individuals in their private life, in their own capacity, cannot do themselves. This is the entire point of the social contract. It's the entire idea behind it. But when politics and the private life become one, then your private life is no longer about you being a family man or being an individual, or it's no longer marred with voluntary cooperation. It becomes a game of brute force, and this is the outcome. Traditions that have nothing to do with politics inherently, whose ethos are animated by a love of civilization, your fellow man, and the transcendent, which is Christmas, now becoming tools for some political gain. Indoctrination is defined as an individual having what is called a totalizing worldview. And this totalizing worldview applies one single principle and reduces everything in the world to that principle. This is what Mussolini in Italy did. This is what Hitler did. This is what the great dictators of the world did on both the left and the right. They had an idea of the world, and as Hannah Arendt, the philosopher, notes, they fit their politics and their way of interacting with society into this idea of the world at the expense of all nuance. And when you do that, there's no possible way you can truly interact with reality. There's no possible way you can truly have a concept of self-respect or personal respect for other people. There's no possible way you can exist in civilization in a manner that is not destructive. Because to live in civilization, you must understand objective truth. And to understand objective truth, you must first be able to use your ability of human reason. And to use your ability of human reason, you must first have an understanding of what it actually means to be a human being, because that's the context that reason exists in. And to understand that, you have to understand the conditions in which human beings flourish. And to understand that, or at least to appreciate that, you have to reject a simplified worldview. Because one single action that you do as a person can be motivated by 10 different causes, 20 different causes. There can be 10 different motivations behind me making this video right now. There could be 20. There could be 30. There could be 50. But if you reduce me to one thing, oh man, you can't understand me, you can't understand the world, you can't understand anything in the world, and most importantly, you can't understand good moral conduct. These pro-Palestinian leftist zealots who wish to interrupt Christmas, who wish to attack a holiday that is about goodwill, that is about love and beneficence, all things that, by the way, are essential for a good society. They have a simplified worldview that is born of indoctrination, that renders them a threat, really, to civilized peoples. Renders them an absolute threat to civilized peoples. Western civilization needs to have holidays like Christmas that attune our minds to the things that mundane life may not allow us to reflect upon, such as goodwill, a love of the transcendent, a love of charity, a love of cheerfulness. There are so many things in life that are so important that holidays can help bring out the human condition. But the third-worldists, who are supporting regimes in the Arab world by virtue of their activism, that would seek to bind us all to the shackle of tyranny under a simplified system where law, a divine law is at the top, and all of us are subordinates to it on pain of death, they don't appreciate goodwill, charity, cheerfulness. They don't appreciate these concepts that are endemic to so many traditions in the West. They don't appreciate it. They simply appreciate, most importantly, conforming the world to their perspective. By force, it doesn't matter. By force, by coercion, they don't care. That is what we're up against right now. We're up against civilizational forces that don't even understand the basic components needed for a good life or good civilization. And my friends, so long as these forces continue to attack us on any front, whether it be Christmas or wherever, and people in the West simply sit by and fold their hands and grumble under their breath, these forces will continue to win. We must use reason. We must use philosophy. We must use pathos, a strong love of civilization, and pathos, a strong love of our traditions as conservatives, to rebuke the third worldist attack on one of the West's most precious traditions that reflects universal values. Society needs to exist. And by doing that, perhaps then we can say that we truly stand for something, as opposed to simply being reactionaries to anything. My friends, like this video, comment on this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel, donate to me if you want to help me get my message out there. Patreon, PayPal, locals, anywhere. I'm everywhere. Come join my Discord if you want to as well. My friends, I love you guys so much, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.